welcome everyone to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Erin Bureau. Today's guest is Ashley Strong. Born and raised in Anchorage, she is a multifaceted artist and beauty innovator who has left an indelible mark on the beauty industry. After graduating from cosmetology school in 2012 and working for MAC Cosmetics until 2016, Ashley transitioned to a full-time influencer role in 2017, quickly gaining recognition for her signature eyeliner looks and creative artistry. Her unique perspective propelled her to viral online fame, earning features in major publications, and then after years of creating viral content, launching a collaborative project and building a household name in beauty, Ashley stepped away in 2022 to focus on personal growth, and today she reflects on her unique journey and the legacy that she's built as a pioneer in the influencer space. Very excited to have Ashley Strong as our guest. Hello to you.
Hi, thank you for that.
Man,
really nice.
And that was just like trimming it down a bit. You have quite the resume, which of course that's what the podcast is. We'll kind of get into. But before we kind of get into being an influencer, being from Alaska, just, real quick for folks, tell us a little bit about who Ashley Strong is, born and raised in Anchorage, which, is pretty amazing in itself. So tell me a little bit about that.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah. That was awesome. So a little about me, I guess I would just describe myself as an artist, a creative. I think a big part of who I am is just being my most authentic self and hopefully inspiring other people to do that as well when they get to know me and find me comfortable in my skin. I like to bring that to other people. So that would, in a short little, that's me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I love that.
In a nutshell.
Well, growing up here in Alaska, did you always kind of know that you wanted to get into this field of like beauty influencer, and growing up here, did it kind of help shape and get you on track for that? We live in this vast, beautiful place, the scenery, everybody, comes to Alaska, drop dead, gorgeous scenery. Did that have any influence on you?
Not at all.
Really?
Honestly, as isolated as we are here, I actually felt like becoming viral on the internet was me reaching out to the bigger world out there. And also, we have to remember influencing is really new. So it didn't even exist when I was a kid for me to even dream about or manifest. So that's, I'm kind of like isolated in that way too. So there's kind of like a double layer to the isolation. But it's allowed me to reach so many people and have a new online family and meet people like you. And just have great opportunities to reach out to the world. So I would say the scenery of Alaska is always inspiring. And I've grown to love the beauty more that, even the more that I've like traveled with my career and things like that. I'm like, there's nothing like home. But yeah, actually, I would say it had the opposite effect. I felt a little bit suppressed here. Yeah, if I'm being honest.
No, I that's what it's here for. You are a mom.
Yes,
Tell
I am.
me about kiddos. One child, two kids.
One kid, one son. I was a teen mom, actually. So I have an even more niche experience with parenthood. And so, I'm 33 now, and he's about to be 17. So I have a 16-year-old.
Wow.
If you can believe it, he's the same age I was when I had him. So it's really crazy.
How was that like? I mean, a teen mom, unfortunately, sometimes that carries that stigma.
For sure.
For you, what were some of your hurdles that you had to overcome? And, looking back on it now, you have about to be 17, a grown adult himself. What was that like for you during that time?
It was difficult, but I was really lucky. I had a great support system. I have a great mom myself. A huge family. I'm a sibling of, one of 6. So I have tons of options for help or for advice. A lot of my siblings are parents as well. I was the first, so he was the first grandbaby.
Ooh, spoiled.
Yeah, so having a 16-year-old, it's interesting. I find like I'm not like my peers in a lot of ways, and so neither is he. With his mom being a lot younger, we find ourselves having conversations that are niche and a little bit different. For example, I'll be a mom like longer than some people, but I'm younger than them, so there's a little bit of a point of contention there when with points of view or just like different approaches or different perspectives. I'd say overall it's given me a really unique experience and a unique understanding of life. And I can apply that to my work and to my parenting and to these things like podcasts that are, that cover parenting and things like that. So I'd say it's offered a very unique perspective for sure. But by no means was it easier.
Well, parenting in general.
And then you add the layers.
Yeah, I bet. Well, let's transition getting into, ink blot technique. I looked this up. It's very cool. So if you're listening, go look that up and
Thank
see
you.
kind of what it is. But it was a very powerful way to kind of merge art with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
How has your own mental health journey evolved since kind of stepping away from the influencer world, especially as a parent?
Yeah. So stepping away, I was able to accomplish so much, and I was in a very privileged position with all of the opportunities and the success that I had. And then it was really time to kind of get back to my roots and rediscover why I, started this in the first place, just to make sure I was going into the right direction. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life. And what's funny about being a mom so young, or, having a child, is it really puts time into perspective. And so my motherhood has really allowed me to look at time not in a linear fashion, but more relatively. And I realized at the, top of my game that I was in a space where I could potentially focus inward instead of externally, and really start to reassess where my validation for what I'm doing is coming from. And so I found that at the time I was getting a lot of external validation with the online presence and, the way that affects your mental health, reaching millions of people, having millions of opinions being thrown at you. And so just wanting to make sure that I'm being my most authentic self, setting a good example for my son and for everybody else that was watching me and inspired by me too. It was time to kind of practice what I preached and go inward. So yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed my time away. I'm obviously stepping back outside, I'm back outside, right. But yeah, it's been good.
The ink blot technique, if you had to describe that to someone, what would you say?
It's like, I like to call it like effortless effort. So it's a very difficult technique to accomplish, but it's supposed to look like splatters of paint. So I think that's like, kind of how I approach a lot of things in life. I try to make it look good, make it look easy, make it look fun. But most of the time there's a lot of discipline that goes into it. And I think that has to do a lot with mental health. A lot of people make it look good. You see the outside, you're put together, you're smiling, you look nice, but on the inside it's a lot of work. And I think it takes a lot of discipline to remain, stable and grounded, and especially in my field and in your field, I'm sure. So, effortless effort.
I like that.
Yeah, and I also really like that it's up to the viewer's perception. So that's another layer of it. It's interactive in a way. And so, yeah.
Well, many parents worry about social media kind of in beauty standards and how they affect their kids. What advice do you have for parents that are raising children in today's very highly visual and kind of curated world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would recommend being involved. I mean, we have so many new technologies, right? And I mean, I grew up with a bunch of technology. I was like an unmonitored child on the internet, chat rooms and things like that. But if I'm being honest, I probably should have been a little bit more monitored. I've come across some crazy things. So with, like the iPhone, for example, there's like parenting dashboards. And, I think parents really should take advantage of the features that come with these new technologies and make sure that they're involved and that they know what their child's seeing. They're understanding the screen time. There's studies now about screen time and the way that social media affects kids. So just making sure you're informed and that you're, hands-on and, not letting the screen raise the kid, I think is as a new thing, that the iPad kid is a thing, right? Yeah. So we're dealing with that in grown adults now. I think it's a thing.
I know.
So
we were just stuck in front of the TV. So, I mean, were we TV kids?
Yeah, I guess we were TV kids. I mean, there's just screens everywhere. My son doesn't know a world without screens, right?
I was going to say, for you were on social media, so you had to be, having screen time and you had to go, film and do your thing. So how was that with your son at a younger age with the screen time and then you having to be on your screen?
Yeah.
How did you balance that?
I guess I really didn't think about it. I think that, balancing things in general is always just something that I try to accomplish. So it wasn't anything I was like really adamant about or like really disciplined about. I think I just, there's a point where you realize like, we haven't seen the sun in a while. Maybe we should go touch grass. We should go step outside and have a dinner date or be interactive or spend time with family. So I guess it came naturally as somebody that, I was born in the 90s, so I understand, what it's like to play outside and to rewind videotapes. But then I also understand having a computer in your pocket. So, yeah, I think it came natural.
Kind of 24/7 access there.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of your big lessons that you learned from the beauty industry? And then second part to that question is, what advice would you have for any kind of aspiring beauty influencers, especially here in Alaska?
Yeah. I think the main thing I've learned is that internal validation is the most important. It's king. And as long as you're happy with what you're doing, then it should show on the outside. I think the advice I would give to any other influencer or somebody that's aspiring to be an influencer is don't let the oversaturated market intimidate you. I think that a lot of people I think there was actually a study done where 65% of kids, when they write down their goals in school, like elementary kids, a lot of them said they want to be influencers. And so there's this kind of oversaturated theme going on in the industry. But I say don't let it, negate you. I think it's really important to get your message out there and to stay true to yourself, and as long as you're doing that, it should, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. How did you kind of find your niche is beauty. How did you, do you remember kind of posting your first video? Did you know what you were doing?
Yeah.
Did you know that this was kind of the direction you wanted to be, to go in?
I've always been into beauty. I've always been into art, actually. Yeah. So I used to draw as a kid, and I really enjoyed specifically perspective art. So I like drawing buildings and lines and architecture. So I love symmetry. I love the ink blot. I love eyeliner. I love things that are technical. And I think the art combination came in when I was watching my mom do her makeup getting ready. She's a glam girl. She loves some eyeliner.
Yeah.
And her messaging behind makeup was always just that it made her feel invincible and strong and to look good, and she felt good. And so I kind of feel like it was a bit of a superpower. And it's like armor. You put your makeup on and
kind of turn into a,
exactly. So it's the best version of yourself, right? And I enjoy the history behind makeup. And so, I also love ingredients. I'm kind of like an ingredient nerd. So I like, for example, with my collection, we did a hydro liner, which is a dry cake liner, but it's activated with water. So it's travel savvy, and it's really cool because you can do a little bit more calligraphy style liner versus the regular liners you get at the drugstore.
Right.
So it's a little bit more versatile. So I do like that aspect of makeup. Yeah.
And speaking of, you had a collaboration. Tell us a little bit about that. And, what was that like? That has to be pretty exciting.
It was really cool. I don't think I'll ever do anything cooler. Hopefully I do. But I was approached by Morphe. So actually I ended up winning a reality show, and that was during COVID.
Which was the Instant Influencer. Okay, well, let's backtrack. Let's start with Instant Influencer. Tell me about that. COVID did kind of, everybody turned to online.
Exactly.
So what was that like for you?
So I was at a second phase in my career where, I had been viral, I'd gotten, an organic base, and now I was ready to kind of perform, compete. And so I did a string of competitions, ended up winning Instant Influencer, which was actually kind of a fluke due to mental health. Funny enough, I entered the NYX Face Awards and made the top 30, and I was going to get ready to compete, but my mental health just wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I ended up withdrawing from that competition and having to kind of disappoint fans. But again, it came back to being internally validated and just didn't feel right. So I withdrew respectfully with all respect to the other people that did make it. And somebody else that was in a better position got that spot, so that was well-deserved. And then as I was on a little bit of a break, just trying to, figure out what that was about, my manager at the time was like, you got to do this show. I think you'd be great for it. And so we did it on a whim. It was a pilot. So it had never been done before. We'd never seen it before. So it was very experimental, which I liked about it. And we filmed in January, and actually during production is when the news broke that COVID was a thing. It wasn't even called COVID yet. It was Corona still. And we were like, how weird. We, we hear tons of stuff in the news all the time, and I'm sure you guys are listen, but I know people are okay, well, we'll see where it goes.
Right.
And so we filmed and wrapped in January, and then by May, the show launched, but that's when we were on full lockdown.
Right.
So it's so interesting. I feel like I could never recreate those circumstances or the success that show had because it was so particular to the time. But millions of views right off the bat. And it was insane. I don't even think production realized it was going to be so viral. So no one expected the success, but it was a pleasant surprise. And then from there, I got to become the face of Morphe Cosmetics holiday campaign, which was really cool. And then we had a great relationship from that point, and that's what led to the collab. So it was kind of like a string of events.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool and just really niche. And again, on that time, it was really serious lockdown. So we were doing photo shoots with masks, and there was only 6 people, and that's, it was in Los Angeles, and LA was, what is it called? It was like a hot spot, or it was like a...
Oh, I know. Where
it was like
kind of
concentrated there.
Centered in different cities and places, yeah.
It was one of the first, counties that shut down restaurants, and so it was a very unique experience, I think, for everybody, and yeah.
Wow. So in the height of COVID, which, then everybody, I kind of think, wasn't sure, like, oh, we're going to turn to online. But did you, I mean, you mentioned with the millions of views, did you notice, like, your audience was growing from there? And that kind of gave you a foot in the door to just kind of catapult to where you're going to go next?
Yeah, the online space is all about momentum in these moments. So I always say, like, as if you build it, they'll come. So you have to be prepared. And once you get your moment, you'll be ready to take it. I think if it hits you and you're not ready, then then maybe next time. But fortunately, I had a ton of experience, and I had a lot of direction, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I had a message, and I was a little bit older than my peers, too. I'm 33 now, so around this time I would have been around 29, 30, which I feel like influencing was kind of like, maybe like teenage girls in their room, like getting ready. So I do think I reached a different demographic, and it was just this really Frankenstein kind of scenario that I really couldn't replicate, like, till this day if I wanted to. So it was really fun. I'm happy I was ready for it and was able to keep the momentum, which was the key point, I think, of my success, and like how I was able to maintain all of that attention right away.
So are you home base here in Anchorage and kind of travel out around? Is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I travel a lot, but Anchorage is always home. I have all my family here. I was born here. And it's like, again, all the traveling I did really just helped me appreciate how beautiful this place is and how unique it is. So,
what do you feel about kind of putting Alaska, Anchorage more specifically, on the map of the beauty influencer world? Did you get a lot of comments like, "Wow, Alaska," and that opens the door? I mean, it's a huge icebreaker for anyone finding out, "Oh, you live in Alaska," and then
just another unique layer, right? Like, it's like this thing where people don't expect it. And I think it really helped me, like, set me apart, as if I didn't need any more setting apart. But then being from Alaska really made it very unique. In the industry, I think, like most entertainment industries, it's LA, it's New York, and it's Georgia. Like, maybe it's Atlanta, right? And so I think it was helpful, and I think it's really cool to be able to be doing what I'm doing here, one of the only influencers that is here. All attention on me. I love it. I'll just eat it up. It's all mine.
There you go. Hey, I'm here for it. So I know you stepped away. What's next? Do you have anything brewing? What are you looking forward to?
Funny enough, I'm actually interested in a podcast.
Oh, well, here's
so this is a little on-job experience for me. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in just, maintaining the same message I've always had, which is just being my most authentic self, in hopes that other people can find who they are and find their voice. I'm all about self-expression. I'm all about expressing myself and bringing myself closer to my purpose by being authentic, and hopefully bringing people closer to theirs through doing that. So I'm all about, expressing, talking. I love talking. I love creating. I love video. I love the technology behind it. I think it's really cool that we have the opportunity to have podcasts and things like that. I feel like this wasn't a thing 10, 15 years ago. I mean, maybe it was, but not so mainstream, you know? And so, I'm interested in just more ways to express myself, maybe more long-form ways, more permanent ways. I do think the online space, you go viral, and now going viral is completely different than it was 5 years ago. So just keeping up with the times is something that I've prided myself on and been good at, and being able to adapt and things like that. So, putting myself in different mediums, different forms.
That's great. No, talk a little bit about the hard work behind the scenes, because and kind of in my industry, a lot of people, they wake up, they see us on TV, hair done, makeup done, outfits, but
you guys make it look real good.
That goes behind the scenes, and so I'm would say the same for you as a content creator, influencer. If somebody's listening and they're like, oh, it's just, well, one, kind of like, how easy is it to just get the video out there, to kind of like go past your fears, getting over that hump of like being nervous? Were you ever nervous to like get that video out there? And then how do you combat, just the online bullies and the comments, and just still staying authentically true to who you are. How does that come about? Does that take time? Does that take practice?
I think it takes time. I think it takes maturity. I think you have to develop a good sense of self and self-confidence, self-esteem. That comes with time, you know that. And once you have that, you should be pretty okay. I think it's day by day. Everybody's different. I'm not going to say that every single video I've ever posted I've been fully confident in, but I think a big part of just posting it anyway is kind of a therapy in itself. What do they call it? Rejection therapy, where you just put something out or you do something embarrassing just to get it over with, because at the end of the day, no one really cares.
Yeah.
Even if somebody writes a mean comment, they're not thinking about you after that. I mean, it's just, you realize just how much people don't think about you, I think, being in the online space. It does kind of feel like, oh my God, everybody's looking at me, at first, or maybe even your peers are kind of like sneering, like, oh, she's putting herself out there. That's so embarrassing, But again, it just comes back to, if you don't do it, you'll never know, and you don't want to regret, and everything's kind of embarrassing anyway. So it's like,
and I think that makes you relate to your viewers and to your audience. When you like maybe drop the eye pencil and you're like, oh, my bad, and keep it pushing, because that just shows people that you're real. You're a real person. You're a mom. Same in TV. Like I'm a mom. I go home. My kid gets on my nerves sometimes.
Yeah,
and we're not all together 24/7.
How old is your baby?
She's 9.
Oh my gosh, 9.
She's 9, and so our viewers watched me, go through my whole entire pregnancy. I worked up to the day that she was born and came back, and I actually went through postpartum depression.
Wow.
So that was for me. I'm a huge advocate of maternal mental health in general, but why starting the parenting podcast is because I'm an extrovert. I'm outgoing. I'm a big personality, but then I had my daughter and got depressed.
You changed.
And I had to figure out how to maneuver that, and came back and wanted to share stories of other moms. And my news director was like, well, why don't we share yours? And I was like,
oh, wait, that was not.
But you know what? I shared it, and I'll tell you, it was the best thing I could have ever done. The floodgates open of just women with grown adult kids saying, that's what I went through.
That's what you put it into words for me, finally.
And I feel like COVID kind of blew the lid wide open on mental health, where it's cool now to just talk about, hey, I don't have it all together. I think that makes people just to see in these positions, where they look up to you, man, she's got it all together. But just to be real, like, like you stepped away from that competition that had to, that's admirable,
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
And
specifically for moms, right?
Yes.
I think women, right, too. Like, I think we do there's a high standard placed on us, and we do have to make it look good. So it's really nice to be able to sit with, a woman and discuss that it's not all easy all the time, No. And you do change. I mean, chemically, like, I didn't even like the same foods. I was like, what's happening to me? And it's, it's not talked about enough either. Yeah. I think that there was a lot that I learned on my own. I'm like, where are the books on this? Like, who's talking about this?
Yeah,
so
it's like, you can read all the books, and that's great, but, when you're just in it. You're learning as you go.
You're learning as you go.
And I'm sure you're still learning,
Absolutely.
with your son. And for you, I'm a big proponent, too, of keeping your cup full. What would you say to, the moms out there, that kind of, aren't pouring back into themselves? Like, for you, this is something that you enjoy, and, putting on the makeup and things like that. What would you say to other moms that kind of feel like they're losing that part of themselves?
Yeah, you're not going to fill anybody's cup if you're empty. So it just doesn't even work.
Right.
It's not logical. And it doesn't make sense if you really think about it. Where's the water coming from? What are you pouring in if it's not water, right? So I think that, there's such a thing as like, it's like toxic positivity, like constantly trying to be this like saint, when really you're just a human, and we all have bad days. And I do think not putting yourself first is harmful to the children, because you're not setting a very good example of how they should potentially treat themselves, or even other people, when they need to put themselves first. I think that boundaries are a huge part of mental health. It's a huge part of being a mom, especially with like, I think, the expectation that you're always available, or you're always sound of mind, or you're always able to give. I think that, telling it's like rejection therapy for kids, right? Like no is okay at a young age.
They're resilient.
They'll be, actually I think it's much better to do in-house because, you get to reject them and have them go through all the horrible emotions of rejection because God knows it sucks and I don't want to be rejected, but it's a part of life and it's a huge part of life actually, and even bigger is how you're able to navigate it and if it's going to stop you from being, from trying again or doing or respecting it, and learning boundaries yourself because I think they're, it's super helpful. So I just think, if you really think about it, 1 + 1 = 2, not 3. And trying to pour into other people with nothing in your cup is just, you're not going to give them good stuff anyway. You know what I mean? So.
Well, you have a son, and how old is he again? You said
16.
16.
Yeah.
Man, he's about to be 17.
He's about to be 17.
You're in the beauty world. Did you think what would have been different if you had a girl, or how does your son?
I think about having a girl all the time, just because I only have one, so it's just the one. Not that I'm not bored of you, son. I'm just.
He's like, wait, Mom. No, we love you.
But you always think about it. I think I had a boy for a reason. I think that he shows me different perspective. I was actually from a family of all girls.
Oh, okay.
So we have one brother, and bless him.
Oh, wow.
And I think that my relationship with men, it stems from my dad, which wasn't the best. So I almost think like it's a different take on that and his perspective on things. It's been really fun having him throughout my career because he has a good, fresh perspective, and he's quick to tell me, if something's not cool or I have a little secret weapon.
That's good. Yeah, he's in on the know.
They're a little harsh, those young ones.
Yes.
So he keeps me on my toes. He's also very creative, and he's a lot like me in that way. He's very inventive. He understands how technology works super easy. I think all kids do in this generation, but he's really good with his hands. So he's talented, and I draw a lot of inspiration from his perspective of life and. His opinions. He's funny. Sometimes I can't believe that he has such sophisticated jokes. I'm like, so I think he's cool. He's my best creation. I love creating, and so I'm really proud of him. I think that he's been really supportive. I stepped away right when he got to high school, so I don't know if that was good. That's probably great for him, but it was aligned and it made sense. And now by the time I'm back, he'll probably be almost graduated. So it's interesting how that worked out.
So you'll be an empty nester. How are you? Preparing to kind of navigate that next phase.
Oh, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
To do your thing.
All good. Yeah, I think I'm such an independent person naturally, and that doesn't change just because I'm a mom. I think that being a mom, you add that to it, but I've been so lucky to maintain my independence and not lose myself for too long. You get a little lost in the sauce sometimes, but I've been able to come back to myself and meet myself over and over and over again and grow with myself and with him. And so I feel like being an empty nester is it's kind of like a daunting thing. Like, oh my God, what are you gonna do with your life? And I'm like, oh, I'm good.
It's like kind of like your next phase. Like
I got lots to do.
And I think creating to do.
Yeah, and that's a really important part of pouring into yourself because your kids are gonna get older one day, and one day you are gonna have to look around and you're not gonna be cooking for people or they're not gonna be available, and it's important that you have your own life and. Pour into yourself and know how to do that. Yeah.
I agree. Well, before we kind of wrap, if folks want to get in touch with you, follow you, what's the best way, social handles or,
So I'm Strashme on all my social handles, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. My main platform is Instagram. Haven't posted in a couple of years, guys, but that doesn't mean I haven't been filming.
Right.
Lots of content to come. So go ahead and follow me at Strashme. And stay tuned.
I'm excited to see what's to come. I always let my guests kind of have the last and final say. Anything that we touched on that you want to maybe elaborate on more, just anything that's on your heart that you feel you want to share, I will let you have the last word.
Yeah, share your stories. I think that we have such a unique blip in time right now where I'm binging other people's perspectives. I love other people's opinions. I think the climate can be a little bit hectic if you don't set your algorithm the right way. So remember that you are king on your phone. Your phone doesn't control you. You control it. So make sure you're setting your algorithm to things you want to see, things you're interested in. Check yourself if you find yourself hate watching or you find yourself in the comments being a hater. That's not mentally stable. So be good about that. Be nice about that. And just spread joy and tell your stories. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
You you just go up from there.
There you go.
I love that. Well, it was so nice to talk to you
Thank
and
you.
meet you. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ashley, thank you so much.
Thank you.